I just before we do that, I had a look at it. I'm not nowhere near as immersed in it as you are. 5 players at the end of all this, I think, can have a real meaningful impact on the clubs that they've arrived at.
Who are the 5?
Do you want to have a crack at it to see whether you agree? I'm figuring Dan Houston changes Collingwood, helps Collingwood.
Yep.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. He's a star. He's a star. Now, you can argue about what they're doing in terms of players over picks and all that stuff. Shea Bolton changes Fremantle.
Agree.
For mine. I don't think there's any question. I think he checked out halfway through the year. I thought he was a real disappointing back half of the year when I compared the way he finished the season with Baker.
Yep.
But he will change them. I've got both of them at Hawthorn, Barrass and Battle. Now, Barrass certainly, Battle, you can argue. But I think what they do to that side and giving the flexibility to James Sicily, who I rate so highly, I think that changes them even more, Hawthorn. Now, you can argue that one. And the only
Bailey
other...
Smith?
No, I'm not.
No.
I haven't got Bailey Smith on the basis...
Not a game changer.
No, can be, but he's a year out. So I'm not prepared to say he's going to walk in and change. He may. By round 3, I might go, yep, he's back. Because I know he can play footy, but he's coming off an ACL.
Does Perryman change Collingwood at all?
Not no? Massive. I mean, no one was talking about Perryman ever.
He became James Hird, didn't he? That's what I said.
Well, it's like Peatling. I didn't know much about Peatling either, but he became bloody David Schwartz at the end of it. He's a nice player, Peatling, but I don't think he changed. And I spoke with Bruce, our producer out there, and he talked me around on Dan Rioli. Maybe I've got him in there changing, perhaps attitude, mindset, the way they attack from the back half, perhaps be a bit more aggressive around Gold Coast. So they're my 5. Any agree, disagree?
No,
got to add anyone? Want to drop anyone out?
Only because he went to West Coast, it's not going to matter. But Baker is a good.
No,
club.
I took that under consideration.
Yeah,
I mean, he will be good for them, but they're not.
No,
I don't think they're going to contend.
He's not going to help them go from 2 wins to 11. So, but he's going to be an important player. You would think at that footy club for the next 5 to 6 years for a variety of reasons. And he's an excellent player. Gives them some flexibility and leadership. So I would think Bailey Smith.
Yeah.
If they can get him through a full pre-season and get him right, I think he does help Geelong with their midfield issues that they've.
No, I agree. The best version of him, but I want to see it. Coming
Fair
off
enough.
12 months out of footy. But you can agree or disagree. Right, Adelaide Crows. How'd you see them?
Pretty good. Yeah, I think they've clearly they've signalled that they're ready to win, and I think we all understand that. Matthew Nicks has got a big start to the year. Neil Bullen, you would know better than most, front half player, really helps in that aspect and defensively as well. Peatling, I do rate because he has played some big roles and he's a big moments player. He's courageous. Cumming, I'm not sold. He played 6 games last year, coming off some nasty soft tissue, but the best version of him. And they've still got pick 4. So the opportunity even for them to perhaps split pick 4 into a couple of good picks.
Himmelberg goes out. He hasn't been playing, so
they haven't lost anything.
So it looks like they've improved their list. Bullen and Neil Bullen is an A-grade citizen as well. I don't know about this. Not saying the other 2 aren't, but in terms of leadership and standard setting, he becomes an important player for them. So I think they've done pretty well, the Crows. I'm with you on that. Brisbane done bugger all, really.
Just got the picks in to be able to match the bids that will come. So, I mean, the challenge for them is the Joe Danaher and the forward line structure. Cam Rayner probably plays a bit taller, but you know, you're going to rely on Hipwood and Logan Morris to stand up as your key forwards next year. That's the reality for them.
So Sam Day will come in just as depth and security, but the bottom line is they pick up probably the best kid in the draft. So if you're a Brisbane Lions supporter, you don't worry about the trade. Get excited about the draft. Blues have done really well. They gave up a fair bit to get themselves into prime position. They lost Owies. Haynes comes in. They get themselves pick 3. And they lose their first round picks to Hawthorn, first and second round. So they gave a fair bit up, but it would appear that they have a player in mind, I would imagine.
I would think so.
You've got to hope that he doesn't go, in the first 2 picks.
But they say that, at that pick, you're going to get a midfielder that can come in and impact straight away. Like Kennedy, I mean, they've lost some depth, though, haven't they? Like, Owies and Kennedy out. They've been good citizens for them.
Yeah.
The question I would have is around their small forwards. Can Motlop hold up and can he kick you 30 plus? Can Durden do the same?
Yep.
Moyer's a player that we've all sort of seen. Go, gee, there's glimpses there, but it's too early for him to be expected to have a meaningful impact.
I don't mind that though. I think if you keep Owies on, then Moyer maybe doesn't get a list.
Yep.
Doesn't get a look. And he was in the first round or near enough to last year.
He was, yeah.
Showed a bit during the late part of that year. So I'm giving a big tick. I think the Blues have done pretty well.
I agree with you. And Collingwood are the story of the trade period, you would think. It's an as aggressive approach to any one season of football as we've seen in a long time. So they didn't have a first-round pick. They've now traded their other future first-round pick. So, depending on where they finish this year will dictate how successful that they have been. But they've identified players who the coach wanted. Houston, I'm with you. I thought he was the best player in the whole of the trade period. So, huge get for them. Didn't give up a whole lot to get him. But they'd want to win, and they'd want to get a premiership in the next 2 years. Otherwise, they're going to be in a similar position to Richmond in 2 or 3 years' time.
9 players next year will be 32 and older.
And a lot of them have had injury concerns as well. And, the best indication that you're going to get injured again is you've had a previous injury and age. So that they got those factors. How healthy can they be? How can they manage those players so that they are peaking at the right time and winning enough games throughout the season to give themselves a top 4 opportunity? They're the storyline out of it for me. Like in terms of the story to watch, Collingwood are the story.
And the thing about this, and I admire them, right? I probably don't agree with their approach, but that's neither here nor there. I admire how committed they are to it. They're not wishy-washy. It's not, no, will we or won't we? It's no, we are. So fair enough. Now we judge you, and they know that. The thing about the 932 pluses next year is okay, but by the end of next year, when you want them at their best, that 12-month period is the equivalent of putting another 2 on, because you have to get through the season. It's a massive, and I think you agree, the demands on our players for the length of season and when it starts and how long it goes. Don't worry about what it looks like now in October of 2024. In September of 2025, when you want them at your best to be winning a premiership, that period of time is the equivalent of 2 to 3 years for those blokes at the 32 years of age. So that's the challenge right now. I don't go 32. I still think that's a lot. But by the end of next year, those 32ers could be playing like 38-year-olds. That's how much it demands of you and drags out of your body.
No
That's
doubt.
the challenge.
Yeah, and you you manage them until they get, but you've got to win enough games to give yourself the position to be where you need to be. So you get the weeks off where you need the weeks off, and you're fresh.
That's right.
When it matters.
And we want them at their 32, a year older, at their we don't want them to get through the year. This is for Collingwood I'm talking about. We want them to be the best players in the competition in September next year.
Can they do it?
I don't think they can. But I love the fact that they are single-minded in their approach to it and the way they go.
I want to chat about Essendon because they're already starting to condition their fans that we're young. And you just hear little glimpses, and Matt Rose we spoke to last night after the trade, he said, well, we're really young.
Let's have a listen to Matt Rose.
Yeah, well, that's the exciting part, is there will be opportunity for youth. We're going to be a reasonably young list next year, so...
Is that what Zach Merritt wants to hear? This guy is as hungry as any individual in football for success, and their fans, we know. So the question is, can they do what Hawthorn did? Because Hawthorn were young, and you go, okay, well, it didn't bother them, they're fine. Can Essendon do what Hawthorn have done, or are they conditioning their fans once again for a season that is going to be filled with frustration, some excitement, some ups and downs, but more downs than ups, and they're not in it to win it?
I think the messaging they give their players and internally would be different to what Matt's saying, but you're right. What he's saying is getting the supporter base are ready for it, is under-promise, over-deliver is basically what they're about. I think there's a reality that's struck at Essendon, is that we've tried. We've tried to hang around. We've tried to be here. We've tried to be this. I think we just spoke about Collingwood. This is where we're going, and we are unapologetically going about it. I think Essendon have waxed and waned, and I think we're finally going, the other stuff hadn't worked. We've got to make more of a considered decision about how we're going to get forward. So I don't think they should be putting any limits on themselves, but I would rather see them go, no, we are committing to this path rather than jumping off a path and going to another one and another one.
Yep.
So,
and the Jake Stringer handling of that and essentially just pushing him out.
I don't mind.
Yeah,
I don't mind.
I'm with you.
I think that's just footy these days, and Jake's at the back end of his career, and I hope he goes really well at the Giants. So Freo gets Shea Bolton in. So they've given up a bit to get him in, but the best version of Shea Bolton makes them really competitive.
Yeah, so I'm with you. I was disappointed with him last year, but if you just go back and look at the 2022 version of him, he's as good a player as there is in football. Fills a need that they desperately needed in their front half, can play midfield minutes. So like probably 4 or 5 teams, they need to win, and they need to win now. They know that. And you think they're all aligned on that they need to be there on prelim final weekend with this group that they've got.
Trade radio update for Tyre Power. Great race sale on now. Save on Kumo tyres. Visit your local Tyre Power today. Now, I'm bullish about them. I think it's a good challenge for them. They've got a lot of tools at their disposal. And the thing I'm most bullish about is their key forwards. I love them. I love them. Some midfielders. Geelong. Bailey Smith, we just spoke about him. So the best version of Bailey, a fit, recovered 20, from an ACL version. Bailey Smith goes into a midfield that they've been able to rejig and makes them competitive, and that's what Geelong do. And I don't think any of us have got anything but the utmost admiration for how they go about it.
100%. And if they're going to get 10 home games again next year, they're going to be around the mark because they win 8 of those, and that's a pretty good. That's a pretty good start for the Cats.
Gold Coast have got Johnny Noble, who turned into Keith Gregg at one stage.
He did.
Daniel Rioli, Elliot Himmelberg, and they lose Lukosius and Rory Atkins, and they got picks everywhere, and they got a star. I'm told that it will be available to them via the draft.
Yep.
So less about what's coming in, although Rioli helps them. So I don't think there's any doubt about that. But they're just a footy club that talk is cheap.
Talk is definitely cheap, and there was talk last night from the club that they're ready to go, but they've been ready to go for 12 months. But when you give up 6 and 23, as much as draft picks don't mean a whole lot to Gold Coast for ready-made players, that signals that, okay, let's go. So Noble and Rioli clearly help off half-back. The midfield is, you would hope that Humphreys can be and can help now through the midfield because they've been so reliant on 3 or 4 names through there. Will Powell's a player who I think needs to play more midfield minutes, but they got everything covered now.
Finals or no?
Yeah, yes, has to be.
No
has
for
to
me.
Be. No finals.
No finals. No, I can't trust them. Don't trust them.
Yeah, no, I get it. I
don't
get
trust
it.
them yet.
And until you've seen it, you're probably not willing to trust. I had them finals last year with the ease of their fixture and with the group that they've got. But in what's it look like in 4 years' time when?
Well, I hope Jed Walters, Jonathan Brown by that stage, and the rest of those boys, and they're playing finals.
Ethan Reed's like they call him the unicorn, like this big sort of ruckman that can play anywhere. We haven't seen the best of him. He's going to take some time, but so in 4 years' time, what's it look like?
Well,
frightening.
Hopefully they're winning it.
So the Giants, Garry.
Giants. So what have they done? They got shaky. I like the Giants. They don't really. They just got to improve their football club. They don't really need to attract playing talent. I think there's enough talent there. It's got to improve their consistency in the way they play. They're in winning positions in big finals. Jake could be a nice little wild card. That's what he could be.
He could be a wild card in a forward line that is absolutely stacked. I don't think he quite fits into their game style, the way they demand that their forwards play up the ground, high pressure. Empty out, get back, and get you over the back. So he's not going to quite fit into that. But they do have enough depth. And I don't mind the fact that you lose Perryman, you lose Cumming, because you just can't match these deals that are on offer for them.
No. And you've got comparable players. Well, they may not be there yet, but they wouldn't be far away.
Still got 15, 16, 21 in a good draft. Peatling's the one I would have been a bit upset to lose because I thought he gave them. I thought he played big roles in big games and had big moments, but he came from nowhere. Like he was nowhere at the start of the year. But they'll be around the place. I guess the muck up day, the wacky Wednesday. Does it have an impact on?
I'm going to talk to you about that when we do our full analysis.
Okay. Right.
It won't by August, September next year. It will in the first couple of weeks of the round when they haven't got a few players running out there. But they're my early pick. They were my early pick before...
for the premiership.
Yep, before the wacky Wednesday. The Hawks, Barras and Battle come into the side to a team who were just flying, and the flexibility it offers you. Like, I think James Sicily is nearly the most interesting player in the comp for me and what he's capable of. And the way he plays, he plays at his own pace in a game that is supposed to be frantic and frenetic, and so I just think it gives them great options. Tom Barris is a very, very good player.
Yes.
Josh Battle, I think, is a good player. So it shores them up. It gives them flexibility with how they play with Sicily, and Will Day comes back, fully fit. Like, yeah, if you're a Hawks fan, you're buying your membership now.
Are they the team? You're going to be at the forefront of the fixture. Are they the team? Say Foxtel, Channel 7 are saying we want this team in prime time as much as we can.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
and deservedly so. Yeah. If you're going to play in that manner and win, obviously, then they're great. So I think you're really bullish on them.
Yeah, I am. Can they win it? I think they'll be around the mark. And there's a lot they're going to have to live up to the expectation. It's a different level of that comes. They started the season slowly and came hard, clearly, but they've got a great coach. They've got a game style that we know stacks up. They've got the talent and the personnel. They've got every position covered. Mabiel Chol and their key forwards, can Kaushadir and Chol hold up? So that's your point about Sicily.
Yeah,
and Weddle probably as well.
Wild card, and Josh Weddle could be anything.
And Mitch Lewis's knee was nasty. It wasn't just your normal ACL. So can they get him to some level of performance towards the back end of the year is a question as well. But I really like it. I love the fact that they know where they're at. And like Collingwood and those teams that we're praising, they have a vision and they've executed that. So hard to be critical of anything they've done in this trade period.
Richard's on the road. He wants to talk about the Hawks. Go, Rich. No, he's gone. I think we satisfied him by talking about them and asking. Demons. Right. So Neil Bullen goes out. That's, it was well established early in the piece. I don't know much about Harry Sharp apart from the fact that he can run better than you. And they need some run. I don't know whether he makes their best team, but the biggest story around them was the whole Clayton Oliver situation. I know your thoughts on that, and I understand it. I'm prepared to back him in, and I think it's retrievable. In fact, I'm really excited about this. Right?
Why?
As disappointed as I've been for the year and the way it's played out in recent times, I think this is a great opportunity for this football club right now. And this needs strength of leadership from the whole joint, which maybe has been lacking, in fact has been lacking. Just get it out there on the table. This is an opportunity. You know what footy clubs are like. There's issues everywhere in footy clubs, and great footy clubs deal with them. Whether it's Paddy Dangerfield grabbing someone and taking them down to the beach and something.
Do they have that in them?
Well, but this is why it's exciting. Either you have or you haven't. And if you haven't, then guess what?
So what doesn't Max... you look at Max Gordy, he's as good a captain as there is in the competition.
I'm sure he does. But this is Christian that needs to take responsibility now. Or if he does want to take responsibility, or is he going to be sulking?
Yeah.
Is Clayton going to be sulking? Or do you go, no, let's man up here. Let's man up and accept our responsibility as professional athletes on over $1 million a year to be the best version of ourselves, which I think is an really exciting thing. Maybe I'm being a bit glass half full, but that's okay. And if not, well, then all the criticism will come their way and it'll be justified. That's the way I'm looking at it from a Melbourne point of view. And I think they're capable of playing finals footy again.
Picks
the back
5 and 9. Good picks in a big
and that's the next part of it. And I guess this is your area. I think they've done pretty well to get themselves back into a position where they can get two good kids. But it's a big year. Until you talk about teams coming into a season under pressure, I've got them right near the pointy end in terms of the pressure.
Big storyline. Yeah, big storyline and where that will be if things don't work out this time next year with it's going to be Christian Petrarca, it's going to be Clayton Oliver, it's going to be Cozzy Pickett. These are big names that are going to be spoken about if things don't go well for them. But I really like their under 23. I think there's 6 or 7 players of that age that are all coming through together. So they're the group that's got to drive this as well. Can they get on board? Can they be the driving force? You're going to add 2 guns with 5 and 9. But you're right, the culture of the place and how that is driven and how that is accepted by... I was a bit surprised that Clayton Oliver felt hard done by that he had been shopped around. What did you think was going to happen?
Yeah.
So, but then how he comes back.
How you do that too is...
I understand that.
Is what needs to be, when it's reviewed, to say, of course it's incumbent upon us to understand the market and what's out there. How we do that, well, God, we've got to be a better footy club.
So the review is set to be, the findings of that's supposed to be found this week. How much of that information should be shared with the Melbourne fans? And how do you do that?
You need to be honest and upfront. I'm not reviews. I don't know. It's internal review, external review. The value of reviews will be found by about August next year.
That's it.
And work out whether he did it or not. When I say sulking, I'm not saying that Christian Petrarca has sulked in the past, but going forward, you got an option. You go, am I going to live in the past and say this was poor, blah, 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 or am I going to put it aside and say, okay, let's learn from it and let's make this club the best version of itself? And whether they do or don't, I think it's going to be the big watch, particularly over the summer months.
North Melbourne have added some experience, clearly Darling, Caleb Daniel, which they paid a good price for. Caleb picked 25 for him, so Western Bulldogs did well out of that, but they identified him, they made it happen. Luke Parker there was haggling over picks, I'm not sure why, but eventually he comes in, and Castante's a player who probably would have been delisted at Sydney, so they get him in. They still hold pick 2, which they've got some flexibility to trade out for multiple picks. The Herald Sun haven't been kind on what they've done. They gave them a 3.5 out of 10. I'm a bit more optimistic than that for North Melbourne.
I don't know if you heard us with John. I think they're tracking well. I think the biggest or the most pressure will come from the coach or towards the coach. And this is we talk about Melbourne, this is North Melbourne. No one's been a bigger man than a supporter of Al Clarkson than me, but this is right at his feet right now, is get your genius going again. Let's get back, and I know they've had some, distraction and some really tough, I would imagine, the toughest of times. But get back to being the genius Alistair Clarkson coach and prove to the footy world that you can coach modern footy, that you can go, right, here's my list. I've had to work hard to establish it. I've got enough talent with enough experience. Let me coach the modern game. I reckon that's the watch on them.
It's a good watch.
It's a good watch.
It's a good point. And around the game style as well, that he's for the second full pre-season, how he implements that. They were very offensive and attacking to start the year last year. They get burnt off turnover. So can you now adapt to modern football and learn from the best and implement a game plan that he's going to stack up? But it's got to be 8. So I'm setting the benchmark high. I think they underperformed this year. I think about 8 wins next year is a par score for North, and then the following year it's finals. That's the reality.
Make no mistake, Wardlaw, McKercher and Sheasel. And I know Davey Gignac is your best player and those sorts of things, but those 3 will determine a lot of what happens. And at the natural level of progression on the quality of those players, I think it's going to be exciting.
Players like Zerha and Larky, and like Dersma is, it's going to be his second year. He's played a tougher, but we've seen him sit on heads already. I mean, he's probably capable of kicking 25, 30 goals next year.
Yep.
So there's a lot of upside at North. I'd be excited, and the experience is going to help.
Port Adelaide, your football club, Lukosius, Atkins, Richards. Joe Richards, he turned into Jeff Farmer as well.
He did.
And Dan Houston goes out the door.
So they will say judge us in 4 or 5 years' time, but we just don't have that luxury. So you just got to call it as you see it in real time. They wanted to get into the draft, which they haven't been because of the trades that they've made in recent times. So they did achieve that. But you have given a player in his absolute prime who had 3 years left on a contract that was favourable for them because they signed him before he was a 2-time All-Australian. Dan Houston's gone, and you've given him to a rival. And so the question is, you played in a prelim final last year. Have you got better? Have you improved? And you have to say no because, they say, we bring Lukosius. You would have got Lukosius anyway. You gave your future first pick for Lukosius. You would have got Richards anyway. He was out of contract. He'd committed to you, and he's played 9 games. So we don't know if Joe Richards can play yet. That remains to be seen. And you've taken Gold Coast, given them a favour by taking Rory Atkins in. So I think they've got worse. I did laugh at this in the Herald Sun. If you ask Kane Corns, this rating would have been in the negative, but we're slightly more optimistic. And they gave them a 3.5 out of 10. That's the worst rating, equal worst rating of any team. It can't be much worse than a 3 out of 10. So I agree with you, Herald Sun. It is about a 3 out of 10. That's not optimistic, though.
No, I agree with you. I've been a bit disturbed because I've agreed with most of what you said about Port Adelaide. So I think we talked about Melbourne being they're a massive watch for me.
Huge
in
watch.
The summer months. With Ken in his last year and all these things thrown in the melting pot, then let's keep a close eye on that. Richmond, they could be the biggest winners of the lot, which is a strange thing to say given that Bolton's gone, Rioli's gone and Baker's gone. But 1, 6, 10, 11, 18, 20, 23 and 24. 8 under 24 in one of the great drafts.
It's great. And they were fortunate that the players that left wanted to go to clubs that had the picks. So that was a bonus.
Exactly.
So Freo had the picks, Gold Coast had the picks they were willing to give, and this signals a new era. But in terms of having the success that you've had, and then now the excitement of what you're going to be, there's going to be clearly hard times.
Oh, no, there can't be any more. If you're a Richmond fan, you can't be.
No.
Actually, I'm not telling Richmond supporters how to think. You've enjoyed the premiership, the juggernaut that was your three-time premiership team, and normally teams then pay for that for 20 years.
Yep.
Right? Let's just say, for a three-time premiership team, now you've got access to the best draft in recent times with all these picks. It cannot have fallen any better for you.
It's a great ride, and there's no expectation, there's no pressure of it, and you'll get to track these youngsters and come along for the ride with it. And I think if you're a young player out there who's going, I'm a fair chance I'm going to go to Richmond here, well, what a place to land.
Yeah, I'm going to play senior footy pretty quickly.
On the MCG, in front of big crowds every week at the biggest club. So
with a supporter base that are prepared to give you a year or 2 years to get your feet under the table. Well done, Tigers. They may be very much in the golden feather category, the Tigers. St Kilda had Jack McRae lose battle. Tom Campbell, that's okay. They've got pick 7 still, and 8. So they're going to get good players there, no question about that. But in terms of improving themselves, I don't know whether Jack McRae, I like Jack McRae. Yeah. We know what he'll do. Yeah. He'll get 28 touches.
That's it.
He'll be honest, he'll be professional and all those things, which is great. But they need a bit of sizzle, the Saints, and maybe the sizzle will come via their picks.
Yeah, the sizzle will have to come from that. It'll have to come from Filippo, who's finished the season, would give you a lot of optimism about what he can be. Max King's going to have to give you the sizzle.
Wangani Miller.
He's already got the sizzle. So there's some sizzle on the outside. They wanted Soldo, and I think they rightly eventually said, no, we're out of the race. But that was so Marshall could play more forward, and he's shown for a ruckman he can, but they haven't replaced the Soldo type, which means that Marshall rucks again and means you're so reliant on Max King. Membry goes. So there's an issue there. They're football quicksand again. They're somewhere between 7 and 12.
Yeah, their finish to the year gives them some cause for optimism, but did they finish to the year because there's no pressure and there's no expectation? Is your thoughts there? So no, they're interesting. They just haven't got me as excited. Maybe 7 and 8 will. Maybe 7 and 8 they're going to get these two kids rolled into that, and they can start to generate some excitement for the Saints supporters. Sydney didn't do anything.
Nothing at all. So they're should they have?
Oh, I think it's important to change. A premiership team always is said to change by 3 or 4 players, or should change by 3 or 4. There's players sitting in the background, having spoken to a few people who've been really close at that club. So an Angus Sheldrick, for instance, was talked about in the same mould as Errol Goulden.
He was
2 years ago.
Yeah.
So he hasn't had a great run at it. So they may be just sitting there thinking, okay, Parker goes, Taylor Adams is the obvious, but maybe it's Sheldrick that comes in and changes the makeup or adds to the makeup that they've got there. So I don't know. Swans fans, let us know what you think. Would you like to have seen them be a bit more active, or do you think this player? They got 19 and 22, so they're going to get some good kids coming.
Can you run it back with McLean, McDonald, Amati?
Not for mine.
No, I wouldn't have thought so. I think 2 of the 3, and those 2 need to decide who is going to command that spot. They've got players like Wicks and McInerney, who you think still a lot of improvement. They need to keep. They're going to get sick of being asked about Chad Warner. Let me tell you about that. They're going to be asked.
I think Chad Warner's going to go. That's
what
I think he's going to go. Which I was wondering whether or not that was the only thing I was watching for during the trade period. Whether or not that Freo got uber aggressive or West Coast got uber aggressive, but maybe Chad wants to stay. I don't know. That's my gut feel. West Coast, Brass goes out and Darling. Baker comes in and Graham, so a couple of good citizens. Matt Owies, so he'll play for them.
Good citizen.
They got, what do they got? Round 1, round 2 and round 3 from Hawthorn. Out goes round 4 to the Hawks.
So they're barracking for Hawthorn to have a poor year. Essentially, which will give them a good position for Chad Warner if they need them. Look, they may be able to walk Chad Warner. The threat of doing that through the draft as well if they finish right down the bottom and he's out of contract.
That's true.
So they've got that as well.
Baker and Graham next to Harley Reid, I think, is important.
Definitely.
In his formative years, so it gives them a bit more depth through the middle of the ground. And
Elliot Yeo stayed. They would hope Oscar Allen plays 20 plus. We know what a good player he can be. Really reliant still on McGovern. And I would have liked them to have had more picks in this draft. Like if you're rebuilding and you haven't had many picks in recent years, even the Harley Reid draft. I mean, he was their main pick, their only pick of any note. I would have been wanting to get into this draft. They're into next year's draft. But I do like the coach impresses me. Just early signs, like with his composure and the way that he carries himself.
Yeah.
So I think he's going to be good for them.
So they got 12, 26 and 73, having had pick three. So that's the only thing where I look at that to go, massive draft coming up. Could you have maximised that? I know Baker and Graham come in and all those sorts of things, but maybe the talent coming through the draft might have been their best option, but the way they go. And then the Western Bulldogs, who no one's getting too excited about what the Dogs have done. Kennedy's come in, Smith and Daniel and McRae go out. They keep picks 17 and 25. Doesn't seem to have improved them.
No, I don't think that's improved them. They were a bit hamstrung with Bailey Smith. They spoke a big game early and were demanding a top 10 pick. That was never going to happen. So in the end, I think they did the right thing by not forcing him through the draft and getting nothing, which would have been that pick 17. I really, as you know, like their list.
I think you overrate it.
You do, don't you? Yeah. And I think Kennedy helps just with some flexibility, and I just like the way he goes about it. I think he's an upgrade on McRae. They've cleared salary cap space clearly with Daniel and McRae, which helps with their re-signings of some of their guns, which they're going to have to pay a big price for. But I don't know. I just think they need to hit the ground running, start the season strongly, and give themselves an opportunity to finish top four.
Yeah. Well, and the fact is they may have the best player in the competition by the end of 2026 in Sam Darcy.
Yeah.
Which is exciting for Western Bulldogs fans. And, getting picked 25 for Caleb Daniels probably a result. Swings and roundabouts. Didn't get quite as much as you wanted for Bailey Smith as well. So there you go. There's the wrap. Agree, disagree. That is entirely up to you.